Mr. Boudreaux, would you please give us your full name and DOC number?
My name is Gary Boudreaux, 101068.
Mr. Boudreaux, let me explain our process to you. First, we're going to, I'm going to read some information into the record. Then we're going to conduct a pardon interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will let those persons who wish to have input speak. Here today to speak on your behalf is Emerson Simmons, Gerald Jackson, and Jocelyn Hammond. Also here, not speaking, but in support of you is Tanya Connor, Chaplain Angelo Nola, and Ashley Hooper. Speaking in opposition is Mr. Bruce Broussard, Christine Segura, Mary Broussard Campbell, and Woody Woodruff. Also present but not speaking in opposition, Mike Broussard, Henry Broussard, Justin Campbell, and Amy Hebert. Once those persons all have an opportunity to speak, you'll have an opportunity to address the board, and then we'll vote. Do you understand our procedure?
Yes, sir.
This is Gary A. Boudreaux, DOC number 101068, date of birth February 19th of 1963. He's currently serving a life sentence on the charge of second-degree murder, having been sentenced on February the 18th of 1983. Mr. Boudreaux, is that accurate information?
Yes, sir.
Your case has been assigned to Mr. Alvin Roche, who will begin our interview process. Would you please answer any questions he might have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Boudreaux, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before us today we have Gary Allen Boudreaux, DOC number 101068. Mr. Boudreaux is here today seeking a recommendation for a commutation of sentence for a life sentence for the second-degree murder conviction in the stabbing death of Herbert Joseph Boudreaux on June 27th. I'm sorry. Okay. In the stabbing death of Mr. Herbert Joseph Broussard on June 27th, 1981. Mr. Boudreaux, you and two of your friends walked into the Fishman Bar in Delcombe, Louisiana, around 7 o'clock that evening. There was a dispute about money that was placed on the counter between you and the victim. Mr. Boudreaux threatened the victim with a knife, and the owner of the bar demanded that Mr. Boudreaux and his two friends leave his establishment. Mr. Boudreaux returned just a short time later, walked directly to Mr. Broussard and stabbed him 3 times and fled the bar. He was located the same night in Erot, Louisiana, at his brother's home and was arrested for second-degree murder of Mr. Broussard. On February 4th, 1983, some 20 months later, he was convicted as charged with second-degree murder and was sentenced to life and hard labor at DOC without benefit of probation, parole, or suspension and sentence. The description of the offense I just read of the events of June 27th, 1981 came directly from eyewitnesses and the official police report of events that happened at the Fisherman's Bar in Delcom. Now, Mr. Boudreaux, in examining your application, application statement you submitted for this hearing tells a completely different story of what happened that night. Also, in interviews with probation and parole, you told the officer that you wanted to stick to your version that you submitted with your application. Now, Mr. Boudreaux, we need you to give us your version again. This time, it will be part of the permanent record of this hearing. We want your version as a part of the record, so we have no doubt in our minds what you think to be true and what actually happened that night on June 27th, 1981. Tell us how it happened.
That day was my uncle's wedding reception. My uncle got married that day and we went to the wedding reception. The wedding reception was held in the Fisherman Bar. I went into the bar with two of my friends and ordered us some drinks. We got the drinks. Mr. Broussard accused me of taking his money that was on the counter. The barmaid came and corrected the error and said it was not his money, it was my money paying for the drinks. I handed the drinks to my friends out the door. They were not inside. I handed the drinks out the door. I never walked out the door. And then I turned around to get my drink and the change, my money, off the bar when Mr. Broussard grabbed me and the altercation started.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate your version. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our position in this case comes from the 15th JDC District Attorney's Office. The rest of the legal community in this jurisdiction had no comment. Our position also comes from the victim's family. His daughter is adamantly opposed to any clemency, and we also have an impact statement from his son, who is vehemently opposed to any reduction in sentence. In support of clemency, we have 5 statements or letters. 3 of those statements are from your fiance and members of her family, and a letter from your sister and your brother and a former military colleague. Mr. Boudreaux has a low risk assessment. He has a low needs assessment. He has a GED. And Mr. Boudreaux, you have a fair institution record. And I'm used to seeing offenders come before this board with a good institutional record. But you have a fair institutional record, and that is a major concern for me. And we'll talk about why you don't have a good institutional record later on. Programs completed. Mr. Boudreaux has completed 12-step living in balance, thank you for a change, 100 hours pre-release, anger management, substance abuse, peer walker training, inside out dad, sober group, and he's been a facilitator and a mentor in many of these programs. Mr. Boudreaux, would you like to mention any other programs that you've completed during your incarceration?
Yes, sir. My biggest accomplishment has just been accomplished. I'm a Bible graduate from the Bible New Orleans Seminary College here in campus. I've got a bachelor's degree in Christian education. I've also had many VOTEC trades, carpentry, plumbing, horticulture, and I took quite a few other classes since my last appearance.
Your transition plan is in New Roads, Louisiana, with your fiance, and you have employment plans in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Tell us a little bit about your transition plan.
Yes, we have a trailer. My fiance has a trailer in New Roads, Louisiana. We'll be staying in New Roads. We have 4 daughters that are going to help us maintain everything and get situated straight. I have employment immediately upon release from Deacon Zeke and his wife, Miss Connie. They're going to hire me to work in their company.
Now, how long have you been incarcerated?
42 years.
42 years. Okay. And what is your present job assignment?
Right now, I'm an inmate minister and I work in maintenance.
And are you currently a trustee?
I'm a Class A trustee.
How long have you been a Class A trustee?
At least 10 years, over 10 years, close to 15 years.
Okay. Have you ever abused drugs or alcohol?
Yes, sir.
And when did you start using drugs?
I started using drugs at an early age, maybe around 13, started smoking marijuana. And from there, I went to using other drugs and alcohol.
So, you've completed the 12-step, you've completed living in balance, and you've completed the sober group. Tell us how those programs helped you to get under control your addiction to drugs and alcohol.
Taking it one day at a time, basically, just living for today. If I could stay clean, never take the first drink, never take the first hit of alcohol or drugs, I know I could do it this day. If I could do it this day, it's the day that counts. And from day to day, I do that. Addiction is a serious problem, and it's something that you deal with every day of your life. And I deal with it every day of my life. I've been clean out for over 10 years, and I take it one day at a time.
Mr. Boudreaux, if and when you're released, what would be your ongoing sobriety plan?
Oh, I would definitely attend AA and NA meetings. I would like to be a speaker also and a counselor dealing with AA and NA. I've counseled many programs here in the institution dealing with NA and AA.
Okay. Now, Mr. Boudreaux, let's talk about your disciplinary issues. And Mr. Boudreaux, you do have issues with your disciplinary conduct. You have over 160 disciplinary write-ups and 42 years of incarceration. By my calculation, that's 4 write-ups for every year you've been incarcerated on the average. 95% of those write-ups are aggravated and very serious write-ups. You have 22 contraband write-ups, 6 fighting write-ups, 1 aggravated fighting write-up, 30 write-ups for aggravated disobedience, 20 write-ups for aggravated work offense, 7 for defiance, 8 for gambling, 2 for theft, and 10 aggravated malingering. Totally unacceptable. Your last write-up was only 4 years ago. After 38 years of incarceration, you're still getting write-ups. At the age of 56, you had a write-up, what, for contraband? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What was the contraband?
I got caught with my scale. I got caught with my scale in the dormitory. I took it from out the hobby shop and brought it into the dormitory. And it was a rule violation that you can't bring any of your tools out of the hobby shop
So
into the dormitory. I took my battery charger, my scale out of the hobby shop. I did not think it was a rule violation.
after 38 years, you still were breaking regulations and rules and policies of the institution.
I did not think it was a rule violation. I didn't look at it as a tool. I didn't look at it as a hammer or a screwdriver or anything.
So you had been incarcerated for 38 years. You should have known. Is there an explanation on why one offender in 42 years has over 160 write-ups, and 95% of those write-ups are aggravated or very serious infractions?
Yes, sir. I do have a perfect explanation. I was hooked on stupid for about 25 years. I had a problem, drugs mainly. Then I seek help, and I found out help in Jesus Christ. He convicted me of my sins. He showed me a new path. And if you look at the records, I believe it changed. And I think I have one write-up in the last, 10, 15 years, the write-up you're talking about. Most of those write-ups I had was maybe the first 20 plus years that I was in prison. I came as a young man, came to prison. It was a different prison. It was a hard prison. And like I said, I would take responsibility for my own actions. I was hooked on stupid. I really didn't care too much about authority. I didn't too much care about being in the prison setting. But like I said, I changed my life. I saw the better way. I found Christ. Jesus came into my life. He convicted me. And therefore, I lived my life clean and tried to better my life ever since.
Thank you. Warden Falgood, would you like to make any comments, remarks, or do you have any concerns or observations?
Ms. Roche, you pretty much covered it. I don't have anything else to offer at this time.
Thank you, Warden. Mr. Chairman, I do have a recommendation in this case, and I will share it with my fellow board members at the conclusion of this interview.
Thank you very much. Some questions, so we'll proceed to the witnesses. Jocelyn Hammond. Ms. Hammond. Ms. Hammond, if you would introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like us to know about Mr. Boudreaux.
My name is Jocelyn Hammond. I'm Gary's fiance. I met him back in 1991. I think it was 91 or 90. And I've seen a big change in him from the time that I first met him. When I first met him, I met him through a mutual friend. And when I first met him, I actually met him and introduced him to Christ. I mean, we would mainly talk about the Bible, and well, I would mainly talk about the Bible. He would listen, but he wouldn't, he didn't seem to be too interested in it. But basically, that's what the relationship was about. I would talk to him about the Bible, and you know, I saw a big change in class, I call him class A. I have seen a big change in class A from the time that I first met him until today. When I first met him, he was a different person. Like he said, he was hooked on stupid, but now he began to, you know, have questions. He began to have questions about the Bible and started asking me questions and said that he was gonna search it for himself and everything like that. I've seen a absolutely 100% degree change in him since the time that we first met. He's a totally different person. He is what he said he is. He's genuine with it. He used to work with the retreat, what's it called, the retreat team? With the retreat team and with Return of Hearts. And he would, you know, when we would visit, when I was visiting my 4-day girls, they were young back then, he would talk to them, you know, talk to them about doing the right thing and all that. And with the grandkids now with the Return of Hearts and everything, he's a totally different man from the first man that I first met.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now we'll hear from Mr. Gerald Jackson. Jackson?
My name is Gerald Jackson. I served as the chaplain in Angola from 1999 to 2021. So it's 22 years. And for the first 17, I was a part-time chaplain, worked up there on weekends. And the last 5 years, I was a full-time chaplain. And I really got to know Gary quite well as my time as a full-time chaplain, and then knew him prior to also. The thing that really struck me about Gary, and it's struck me ever since, is the fact that many of the classes that we had, he always participated in all of them. He had a desire not only to know what we were teaching, but also the reasons why. And I always found that kind of fascinating. And if I have to say this, excuse me, it kind of reminded me of myself a little bit, because I was always one who not only wanted to know why, being what, but also wanted to know why and how it would apply to my life. And he had a desire to not only learn what, but the reasons why, so it could affect his life. And I did see a change in him. I really did. As a matter of fact, after he completed some of the classes, I was a full-time chaplain in Angola when I invited Gary to join our retreat team, as was mentioned just a moment ago. The retreat team was basically, it was like 25 different high school groups that came up there throughout the year. And each of the guys would give a testimony of some sort. And I specifically asked Gary to speak to the students about making decisions. And quite honestly, I really wish y'all would have an opportunity to hear that man talk to these kids. He really had a profound effect on making good decisions and the consequences of bad decisions. And he's had experience in both, obviously. And so these kids really, really listened to a lot of what he had to say. And I have to say that I kind of basically gave him about a 10-minute window to give his talk. And he was never able to keep it within 10 minutes because he kind of had the kids captivated. He was on a roll, and he was very, very passionate about what he was talking to those kids about. And I think he really wanted them to learn, be able to make right decisions because of his past failures. So, I just wanted to kind of mention to you all that, he's a man who I have seen change, obviously, from what we've heard in the past. But the last few years has really been remarkable because I've seen him participate, I've seen him mentor, and I've seen him try to do as well as he can for himself, but also for other people. Again, I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you very much. Now we'll hear from Emerson Simmons.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Simmons.
My name is Emerson. My name is Emerson. Emerson Simmons. I was on the retreat team with Gary Boudreaux for 6 years, and his story of how he came to prison and his behavior is one of the most impactful stories that can be told to high school students that are making the same type of decisions that he was making as a young man. And his history in the prison, as bad as his conduct record is and was, shows how far he's come. If you look at the last 10 to 15 years, he's dedicated himself to the church. He dedicated himself to the retreat team and to serving the Diocese of Baton Rouge as a minister to those young people. And he was great at retreats while they were still doing that. I don't think they do them anymore. And the last thing I want to add is that if he is given clemency and parole, he'll be coming to work with me every day, and I will facilitate and assist him any way that I can in his transition back into society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we'll hear from the opposition, Mr. Bruce Broussard. Broussard, if you'll introduce yourself and just tell us what you'd like us to do.
Broussard, the son of Broussard, 17, he was murdered. And I didn't get a chance to speak. My father, he was murdered, and my kids, my grandkids, I have 3 kids, 9 grandkids, and they didn't get a chance to meet him and know him. He won't have a second chance. He doesn't deserve a second chance. I mean, what he just said just now is a lie. They did kick him out of the war. He came back into the war from the backside and stabbed my dad. My dad fell to the floor and led to death on the floor, and that was no fun. He didn't have a second chance. He does not deserve a second chance.
Thank you, sir. Now we hear from Christine Segura.
I'm Christine Segura. The victim's daughter-in-law. I was with another son, he was 21 at the time. And this man got stabbed 3 times in the back when his kids were teenagers. I was pregnant. I was 7 months pregnant with my first child. And he couldn't wait to see his grandson, which he never got to see. And I just can't believe he would come out on the street and be a different person. Not with 160 write-ups. There's no way.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate your comments. Now we'll hear from this Mary Broussard Campbell.
I'm Mary Broussard Campbell. Herbert Broussard was my father. So they're speaking of how Mr. Gary makes a difference in children's lives. Well, he made a difference in some children's lives, mine, my brothers. He had 5 children that this man took our father from us. He claims over money that was left on the counter. That's a total different story, but I guess beside the point. But he's saying over money. So you took my father's life for money. It was worth that? No, I wouldn't think it would be. I was 14, like I said. I had to sleep in the bedroom in my mama's room because I was terrified. I was terrified. And still today, it gives me that feeling again. I feel terror that this man could come on the street. All the things he's done in jail, I don't think he deserves to be out. There's too many things he did in there. 160, like Chris said, way too much. I don't think he deserves that second chance. As my brother said, my dad didn't get a second chance. I don't see that he should get one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Woodruff?
Thank you. My name is Woody Woodruff. I'm an assistant district attorney for Vermillion Parish. With me is ADA Amy Hebert, but she will not be speaking. Watching all these hearings today, I realized the importance that the board puts on honesty in these proceedings and the necessity of owning up to what one has done and accepting responsibility for one's actions. Mr. Boudreaux has not reached that point yet. The facts recited by Mr. Roche are correct and accurate. You heard a completely contradictory version. Still today, 42 years later, Mr. Boudreaux is lying about what happened. The investigation, the facts, the witnesses did not support his version. The jury heard that defense and soundly rejected it. So I say to you today that Mr. Boudreaux has not demonstrated that he has reached the point where he can honestly acknowledge the wrongdoing that he committed, and he is not entitled to relief. The state strongly opposes his application.
Thank you very much. Mr. Boudreaux, is there anything you'd like to say to the board before we vote?
Yes, sir. I would like to address the family. I can feel and hear in their voices the pain and suffering that I have caused them. I deeply want to apologize.
Mr. Boudreaux,
And ask,
address the board. You can say whatever you'd like, but address it to the board.
oh, to the board? Okay, excuse me, sir. Well, I would like the board to understand that I want to show my deepest apology to this family, not only to the family, but to the community and the people that I've hurt throughout this crime that I've committed. The district attorney says I don't take full responsibility. I do take full responsibility for my actions. What I did was wrong. I understand what I did was wrong. I understand that the 160 write-ups that I've committed in prison was wrong. I understand that. I understand that I've made a lot of stupid, bad mistakes in my life. I've come beyond that. And for the past 20 years, 15 years, 20 years, I have done everything I possibly can to better myself, better my situation, to help kids, to help people, to understand that making bad choices can lead to bad results. And this is what I'd like the board to understand and see, that I am not this 18-year-old kid anymore. I'm a 60-year-old grown man who has done 42 years in prison. I ask the board to consider that and just throw myself at the mercy of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Boudreaux. Panel ready to vote?
Yes,
Sure.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I address the offender, I'd like to thank the Broussard family for coming. Your input was significant, and we always like to keep the victim a part of the process. Mr. Boudreaux, you're not ready. You're not ready. You have not been fully rehabilitated. You like rehabilitation. You've not been truthful with this panel this morning or this afternoon. We have eyewitnesses account. We have all the evidence in front of us. And I gave you a chance this morning for the record to change the statement you made in your application. And you did not do that. You hadn't come to the point where you accept full responsibility for your actions. Based on that, a general disciplinary conduct that's unacceptable, express opposition from the victim's family, and the DA's office is strongly opposed. My recommendation to this board today is to deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Freeman?
I too also want to thank the victim's family for showing up here today. I know it's tough on y'all, but it does help us in our decision making. I agree with what Mr. Roche says. My vote is also to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Ms. Jackson?
Right. Mr. Boudreaux, my vote is to deny because of the poor disciplinary record. You have done some good things, and I'm going to commend you for that, but I would like to see a longer period without steps. And so because of your disciplinary record and victim opposition, your vote likewise is to deny, but I encourage you to keep doing the things you're doing and keep that disciplinary record clean.
Mr. Boudreaux, you received 3 votes to deny. I agree with my colleagues. I would encourage you to continue to work. You're doing a lot of things there. You need more work to do. Your request has been denied, so good luck to you.